Never Alone follows the Inupiaq myth of Kunuksaya, where a girl named Nuna and her companion, an Arctic fox, journey across rundown villages and ice and sea to investigate the source of an unrelenting blizzard. Animal spirits help the duo progress, whilst enemies chase them forward. Meanwhile, players discover the native culture from which the myth originates, through cutscenes and explicit interviews with current Inupiaqs. The game's themes purposely reflect the tribe's ideology, emphasizing how close humans are to animals, and thus animals are to humans. Players run through not a charming platformer, but an educational narrative about the Inupiaq way of life, reminded to remember the changing environment around them. By employing stunning storytelling and blurring the borders between animals, humans, and spirits, Never Alone seeks to end the disconnect between players and nature. This motive is hardly disguised, as the interwoven interviews form a self-contained video essay. The opening presents the Inupiaq poor belief of coexistence and minimal imprint.
A society that doesn't do too much harm to the world.
Love and respect for nature, for one another, for our elders. Very, very fundamental value, key to life.
These guiding values are compelled upon us throughout the game. Prefacing with historical context forces the player to prioritize it, and inserting it throughout the game keeps the game grounded. The player becomes invested in two stories, alternating between myth and real-world narrative, blending them together. The inserts directly address animals in Inupiaq culture, explaining their roles in the game. The fox is introduced as a friendly helper.
A pet white fox. If you're a good friend with a fox, when there's danger abound, they try to keep you from getting into trouble.
Not the usual partner in animal companion games, the game explains the natural trust between the characters, building our trust in the relationship's authenticity. Other animals are essentially resources, albeit more figuratively in-game. For the Inupiaq, hunted animals provide food and clothing, and dogs pull sleds.
In those days, was made of all caribou skin.
I grew up wearing caribou pants, mittens, caribou skin mattress, blankets.
The interviews acknowledge their dependence, and thus convey a sanctity and respect for the animals. In-game, they are replaced with spirits, the pure Inupiaq animal form.
Some spirits are depicted to strongly look like animals, such as birds or fish. Nuna has to utilize the aid of these spirits to progress in the game. This represents how animals are necessary for humans to progress, but not always as equals. Some are companions, and others are used as resources, much like the spirits in the game. This scene shows how heavily Nuna relies on the spirits. The coexistence that this game advocates for portrays that just as Nuna needs to use this help to move forward, other humans should also appreciate animals and what they can offer, rather than destroying them and their
Spirit
habitat.
helpers in and of themselves are really about how we're connected with things. And so it may be that there is a spirit helper that shows themselves as a bird to show you the way home, or it may be a spirit helper that actually decides to show themselves.
This further pushes the game developers' agenda that humans should care about climate change and its effect on animals by not hunting them excessively and destroying their habitats. Everything in the game is connected, especially in relation to the spirits. They are the very essence of the game and are there at every turn. This shows how integral the spirits are to the game and its meaning.
Spirituality is important for the Inupiaq, and one of the arguments of the game essay is to convey the universality of spirit and soul in animals, plants, and even the world around them. Nuna, meaning the land, and Sila, the atmosphere and everything else. The clips transition to a plea for people to connect with not only animals but each other, shown in the various clips about cultural rituals and community togetherness, a la drums and storytelling. The other side of the game, the mechanics and details, are designed to reinforce this push for mindfulness as well.
The players are made to play not only as a human Nuna, but as a fox too. This shows players that many things wouldn't be possible for Nuna if the fox didn't help, making the players connect with the fox on a deeper level. Instead of having the fox as a companion like it would in most games, Never Alone focuses on Nuna's and Fox's cooperation to do things. Throughout the game, Nuna and the fox must work together at every turn of the game to get things done, thus highlighting their dependencies on each other. Just how Nuna cannot survive without the fox cannot survive without Nuna. The game shows that survival for the two is in cooperation. Nuna has skills that make her useful, such as carrying boxes to stand on, throwing bolas, and swinging on ropes to get on platforms. The fox possesses important skills and abilities as well. It is fast, it can jump higher, and it can control spirits. All their skills and abilities help them overcome challenges. When the fox dies, the game must reset, but immediately Nuna also collapses and mourns the death of the fox, crying out and ceasing any other action. This informs the players of how they should receive the loss of the partner. More interestingly, the fox also has a very similar reaction, whimpering and lying down at the death of Nuna. One of the game's objectives is to show the symmetry of the relationship reinforced by the number of animal-human characters. This relationship between Nuna and the fox can be seen as that between people and nature. The underlying meaning of it could be that if we want to survive, we need to work with nature.
Antagonists play a significant role in portraying the relationship between the two companions throughout the game and their role in nature. There are three main antagonists throughout the game that Nuna and the fox must defeat to save their village: the polar bear, the terrible man, and the frost giant. Nuna and the fox working together to defeat these antagonists highlights their companionship and shows how many of these antagonists cause destruction to the climate and the harmony of nature. Here, Nuna and the fox are stranded on breaking ice and have nowhere to go to escape the polar bear. Then, the fox calls upon the spirits in the form of fish to save them from the inevitable doom. This conveys how Nuna needs the fox in order to survive, showing that humans are dependent on animals and spirituality. The game also portrays the problems with climate change. When ice keeps breaking, a polar bear plummets to death, which shows how animals are dying out and humans need to show more care toward the climate and animals. In this scene, the terrible man threw fire at the fox and caught it as Nuna was helpless. When she tried to help the fox, the man killed the fox and Nuna screamed out in utter despair. Her scream and her action of dropping to her knees showed her tension and grief for the fox. But the fox being reborn shows how the soul of the fox and that of the human are interchangeable. The terrible man also threw fire, which is a sign of destruction against animals and environment in general, and the fox dying represented evil in humans.
Amanda Hess wrote an article on deceptively innocent Instagram photos designed to raise awareness for climate change. The game acts similarly.
Our climate is changing.
Through the pathos of these individual accounts and player investment in Nuna's journey, the game draws us in and asks us to take climate change more seriously, because it affects animals and people alike. Having progressed through the body of the game, the clips return to conclusively press for conservation and coexistence. The intent of Never Alone is clear. It pushes the philosophies of the Inupiaq that it hopes for us to carry away from the game. The game advocates for coexistence between human beings and animals, not only for utility but for spirituality. Animals are viewed as deeply connected with people, with souls and spirits of nature interchangeable with our own. In a world where this spirituality is usually fleeting, Never Alone asks us to stop and consider.